Andy, my dude, have you heard of the magical website builder known as Squarespace?
Ugh, not another Squarespace ad. I feel like every podcast is sponsored by them.
Hey, don't knock it till you try it. Yes, okay, it is overhyped, but actually it lives up to the hype. Squarespace is like a website fairy godmother. With a click of a button, your site transforms into a beautiful masterpiece.
A website fairy godmother? That sounds interesting. What makes it so magical?
Well, for starters, those slick templates make anyone look like a professional web designer. Pick one, customize the colors and fonts to match your brand, and voila. Plus, the drag and drop fluid engine is so easy, your grandma could build a site on Squarespace.
Well, she did knit me a lovely scarf last Christmas. Maybe website design is next.
Exactly. And when you're ready to sell your Nana's handmade scarves online, Squarespace has built-in e-commerce. Add a store with one click. Get flexible payment options. Then watch those sales roll in. And when she wants to teach others her steezy scarf skills, Squarespace's new courses feature is just the ticket. Nana can set up her curriculum and enrollments and payments in a snap and become the next e-knitting influencer.
Oh, wow, you really sold me with the grandma angle. Sign me up for that free trial.
Just go to thenextreel.com/Squarespace and transform your site into a beautiful Squarespace masterpiece.
Well, thanks, Pete. Even though it's overhyped, Squarespace actually sounds perfect for Nana's site's needs. Appreciate the warning on the ads, though. I'll brace myself next time I listen to a podcast.
Anytime. Let me know if you need any help getting that site up and running. Andy, can you believe we've almost hit 700 episodes of The Next Reel?
I know, it's crazy. And with all the other episodes in our family of podcasts, we are well over 1,200 episodes of movie conversation. It's really pretty amazing that we've gotten to have these in-depth movie chats every week for over a decade now.
And we couldn't have done it without our loyal community of film fans. Their support over the years has meant so much.
For sure. That reminds me, we should give the merch store a shout out. Buying shirts from thenextreel.com/merch is a great way listeners can continue to support the show. Plus, they get to sport our great designs.
Absolutely. I think sometimes folks forget we have a variety of shirts, mugs, phone cases, and more available. In fact, a great place to start is with a shirt sporting the Next Reel's logo.
We also have that classic Fast Times Spicoli Surf School tee, or the weirdly popular Rusty's European Tour shirt.
The one from National Lampoon's European Vacation. Why is that so popular?
Search me, but we have sold a ridiculous number of those. I guess there are a lot of Rustys taking trips to Europe?
We're always adding new designs based on movies we've covered, like our brand new design for a streetcar named Desire, featuring a streetcar named Desire. So if you want to rep your love of TNR and films, head to thenextreel.com/merch.
Every purchase helps us continue to have these weekly in-depth conversations. So visit thenextreel.com/merch today.
And as always, thanks for listening and being a part of the Next Reel community. We've got lots more great movie chats coming your way. This is The Next Reel, everybody. I'm Pete Wright, and that there is Andy Nelson.
Hey, hey, hey.
And we spoil movies. Tonight on the show, we've got the final of our Hughes Brothers series with their 2010 film, The Book of Eli. Before we get into that, you should learn more about us at thenextreel.com or subscribe to the show in your very favorite podcast app and follow us on Twitter and Facebook at The Next Reel. And we've got a Blotspot, friend of the show, Ben Lott, has written in with his rebound on From Hell.
That's right. Thank you guys for saying all that I thought while watching From Hell. I felt it was a brilliant premise, but sadly it was deeply flawed in the choices they made. It has some good qualities, but the mystery wasn't one of them, because I figured it out very early. At least now I know where Johnny Depp started practicing for Captain Jack Sparrow, because his performance of Aberline was almost identical. Your rank 242, my rank 177.
You liked it even more. Fancy that.
I actually still enjoyed it, and it stuck pretty well in my head. I think despite some of its issues, I did enjoy it, and I'm still plowing through the graphic novel again, which I'm quite enjoying quite a bit.
Well, I haven't done the graphic novel, but I'll tell you, after watching this week's film, last week's film absolutely was washed away. So it did not hold up as well for me. We've got some more follow-up. A friend of the show, Johan Weilander, has written in, and boy, did Johan ever write in. We've got an epic tome, and this is a response to our viewing of The Emigrants, our listener's choice film from a few weeks back. We got a couple of passages. This is a great email, first of all, Johan. Thank you so much for writing this. A couple of passages I want to highlight here. I think the first one is on Jan Troll as a filmmaker. The Flight of the Eagle is, in my opinion, he says, Troll's best film and was nominated for an Academy Award, Best Foreign Language Film. It's a period piece about a real event where 3 explorers tried to journey to the North Pole by balloon, and they disappeared. The truth about what happened wasn't discovered until 30 years later when the remnants of the expedition was found on White Island. Von Sydow is back again and is excellent in this one. There are a lot of other films I could mention, but apart from the Emigrant duo, these 3 are my favorites. Jan Troll is really a total filmmaker, handling both photography and editing and a lot of other things, and somewhat unfairly has stood in the shadow of Ingmar Bergman, but he has never lost touch with his typical sense of warmth, and the photography is always great. As you say, it has a lot of connection to the work of Terrence Malick.
Very true. Very true. I did find that quite a bit, and I really enjoyed watching The Emigrants, and I certainly the Flight of the Eagle sounds like a really interesting film. He's a director that I would be happy to watch more of.
I think so too. This total filmmaker comment is intriguing to me, and it's one that's kind of stuck in my head.
We also talked about the actor Hans Alfredson, who was in the film, and how he was in the variety duo Hasse and Tage in the 60s. It was a comedy duo, and Johan suggests, I would recommend you look up the comedies Docking the Boat from 1965 and The Adventures of Picasso 1978 if you would like to see a Hasse and Tage film, the first one also starring Monica Zitterlund, who we had talked about. But unfortunately, these films are a bit too Swedish to be comprehensible. The scripts carry too many jokes that wouldn't translate very well. It's interesting that he says that the actor from The Adventures of Picasso actually just passed away, and Martin Tilkvist tweeted us about that. His name, I believe, was Gösta Ekman, who passed away on Friday. So R.I.P. Gösta. And, I tried to check out The Adventures of Picasso, but I couldn't find it over here. I don't think it's available over here in the States, which is too bad. But maybe it is too Swedish.
You're right. It's too Swedish to be comprehensible, which is now my sort of general retort when things are too hard for me. Thank you to our friends for writing in. We sure appreciate it. This is great stuff. And now, Andy, it's time. Let's do trailers.
Red band rule.
Oh, yes. You win this round.
That's right. So my trailer this week, Pete, is 3 billboards outside Ebbing, Missouri. A little beefy title for the film that Martin McDonagh is doing. He's back in the saddle. This is Martin McDonagh, who won an Oscar for his short film that he did back in, I think it was 2004. And then he went on to do In Bruges and 7 Psychopaths. And now he's got his new film that he's written and directed, again, called 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri. And it looks frickin' fantastic. We have Frances McDormand as the mother of a girl who had been killed. And she kind of gets upset that the sheriff, Willoughby, played by Woody Harrelson, hasn't caught the killer. And so she gets 3 billboards and she puts up commentary about his lack of action on them, and it creates quite the uproar in the community. The film just looks fantastic. Frances McDormand, what a force. Again, just proving how incredible of an actress she is and how funny and how how darkly funny she can be. I mean, she looks fantastic in the trailer. And then you have Peter Dinklage and Sam Rockwell. And of course, I already mentioned Woody Harrelson, and Abby Cornish is in there, and Lucas Hedges and John Hawkes, one of our favorites. Just tons of people. It's a great cast with a really interesting looking story about a mom who is kind of taking things into her own hands to get some action done and find the killer of her daughter. It looks fantastic, and I just cannot wait for this one. What did you think?
Oh, are you kidding me? It was fantastic, and I hadn't watched the trailer until just before we recorded. I knew you told me you were doing it days ago, and I thought, well, I'll put that on my list of things to think about. I am blown away. I can't believe that I missed this trailer the first time around. It looks great. It has that same sort of vibe, that 7 Psychopaths vibe that I really enjoy. And In Bruges, obviously, obviously was another one that was a big favorite. I think Martin McDonagh is terrific, and the whole aesthetic of this film, to take something that is really so dark and make it such a allow Frances McDormand to make it such a dark comedy, I think is terrific. It's what a wonderful, thrilling kind of mystery. I think it's going to be fantastic.
I wish I had a release date for you. Right now, it's just listed as 2017, but hopefully we'll have more information on that down the road.
My trailer, Andy, is The Book of Henry. This is a new film from director Colin Trevorrow, writer Greg Hurwitz, stars Lee Pace, Naomi Watts, Jacob Tremblay, Sarah Silverman, and Dean Norris. Wow. So Jacob Tremblay, obviously Room, the boy from Room, which was terrific. We've talked about that on this very show. Who knew that the next movie he would end up doing would be another strong mother-son film? This is a story of a single mother, Naomi Watts, who is raising a child genius. This young man takes care of her every need, from keeping her schedule straight to doing her taxes. And he's very, very bright. And I thought it was going to be just that. I thought that was going to be the movie. You know what I mean? I thought that was the whole thing. It was going to be a feel-good thing about a mother-son. Wouldn't that be great? And then it turns into something fascinating, where Henry ends up being the mastermind behind unraveling a crime, using his mother as the vessel of his actions. And I thought, from that point forward, I was bought in hook, line, and sinker. What did you think?
Yeah, it really does take that interesting turn where she kind of starts working as a partner with her son to solve this potential crime. This father next door abusing his stepdaughter. And it looks really interesting. And, of course, Dean Norris is always creepy playing characters like that. I thought he looked great as the neighbor next door. And and then it's got Naomi Watts and these kids. It looked really fascinating. So I agree, that twist in the trailer really kind of surprised me and really kind of got me to say, yes, I want to check this one out. And I think you had to pick this one just because of the title.
I did. I totally did.
It's a nice show.
That's exactly why I did it, Andy. I'm glad you find me so transparent. Obviously, director Colin Trevorrow, we've talked about him before on Jurassic World. He is writer-director behind the upcoming Star Wars Episode 9. And there's some good stuff that he has done, even though some of us didn't like Jurassic World as much. Safety Not Guaranteed was terrific. Greg Hurwitz is the writer behind the film, and he's not known for as much, but he wrote a lot and produced a lot of V, the reboot of the Alien Invasion series, and Black Flags. I never actually saw miniseries, pirate thing. So anyway, should be interesting. Release date for the Book of Henry. Right now, all I've got is USA, June 16th, 2017. It's a summer one, so mark it down. Should be interesting.
Excellent.
They say the war tore a hole in the sky, Andy. You've probably heard the stories.
30 winters ago, the war tore a hole in the sky. Only a few survived. Our only hope is in my hands.
Take off the pack, nice and slow.
Put that hand on me again, you won't get it back. Cursed be the ground for our sake. For out of the ground we were taken, and to the dust we shall return. I told you you weren't going to get that back.
The Book of Eli, Andrew, 2010, from our friends, the Hughes Bros. Script by Gary Whitta. Directed by Albert and Allen. Stars Denzel, Gary Oldman, Mila Kunis, Malcolm McDowell, Ray Stevenson, Evan Jones, Jennifer Beals, and of course, Tom Waits as engineer. What'd you think after following this up off of From Hell? What did you think of the Book of Eli, our post-apocalyptic entry into Denzel's canon?
I find this a really interesting film to watch. I wouldn't say it's a film I love. I think there are a lot of interesting things going on in it, and I certainly have a lot of problems with it. But I I found it a very enjoyable watch. I think that's probably the thing that I really took away from it this time is even if I have issues with it and don't know how often I'd revisit it, it sure is fun to watch.
I don't think I have a lot of problems with it, but the problems that I have feel significant. And they take me out of the film. You know what I mean? The thing that I do love about this film, and I want to start there, it's because we sort of locked into this conversation around From Hell that the Hughes brothers wanted to get away from making black movies. You know what I mean? That they were doing something different. It wasn't a menace to society style kind of gang film. And I had a problem with From Hell. But I think that problem sometimes gets misattributed. Those other critics who have a problem with From Hell misattributed to, gosh, the Hughes brothers should just stick to making films they know best, stick to the gang films, right? Those are the stories they know how to tell. They should tell those stories. And that was not my problem. The problem was, for me, From Hell wasn't a story that I think they connected with well enough to make a complete film. I had a problem with it, and it felt very much at the center of kind of their aesthetic sensibilities. This film, I absolutely don't have that problem. This is not a black film. This is a great looking post-apocalyptic, road movie. And I find it really interesting to look at from the very first shot, which we'll talk about. I'm taken in by the camera, by the treatment of the film, and I find it really engaging. I actually really love Denzel's character in it, but that doesn't necessarily. It's not a film that is about black experience. It's about this rogue traveler, and it's a mantle he carries, I think, very well. So there's a lot in the sort of DNA in the film that I think really works for me. What's your take?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right with all of that. And when I say problems with it, it really comes down to really one key thing that I have an issue with, that makes it a much more difficult film to buy into. But I think you're right. It is an incredible vision. I love that they create this post-apocalyptic world and they stick to it the whole time. It always has the same bleak, just washed out, dead look through the whole film. It's so just beautiful in its ugliness. I love that they kind of kept with that the whole time. I think that the Hughes brothers definitely have proven themselves as just filmmakers, not black filmmakers, but just filmmakers who know how to tell a really compelling story and make a really interesting film. They're definitely a pair of filmmakers that I wish were doing a lot more, because they just don't do a whole lot. But cranking out films like this, I mean, they have a story to tell, and I think that they are really good at telling it. So I definitely agree with you there.
Absolutely. And speaking of the look of the film, when you look at the production stills, the behind the scenes stuff, the untreated stills out of camera of the shoot, it is wonderful and stunning just how much treatment they applied to the film to get the look of it. It is it's blows me away at just how clean and clear and colorful and rich the environment is that they're shooting in. It's one of those magic of filmmaking moments that I get totally lost from the very opening shot in the look of it that they created. I think it's really powerful. Gary Whitta wrote the script. I don't know. Are the problems that we have with this film script problems?
It is I don't know. I'm torn with it. I mean, I guess, I'll just come out and say it. My biggest issue is the fact that I struggle buying into the fact that Eli is blind.
He's not blind.
He's
not blind.
It's just, I don't buy it. I just don't buy it.
And it feels like they didn't even want him to be blind.
Well, and I can't quite figure it out, because I mean, the first time I saw it, obviously I didn't know that, and then the reveal happens at the ending, and it's like, oh, okay. I wonder if it worked because I didn't feel like he was blind. Yeah. And then this time, rewatching it, knowing that, there are so many things that he's doing throughout that I just don't buy into. And yes, they do a few things, like he bumps into a small, like a low end table, and when he's kind of moving his hands around on a shelf trying to find stuff, it's the way he's doing it is, I guess you could say, the way a blind person would be doing it. But through so much of the film, he's acting like Daredevil, and he's just like got these incredible superhuman senses and can pinpoint anything that's happening within the room. And I just struggle so much with it. Plus, he takes his glasses off for large portions of the film, and his eyes just never seem like they're blind. And so it's a real struggle. That is a real struggle I have with this film. And that, is it a script problem? Is it a direction problem? Like, if they had actually directed it where Denzel never took his sunglasses off, would I have been able to buy into it better? Probably. I don't know if it would have been completely convincing, but I don't know. I'm torn if that's actually a script problem or just a problem of direction or performance.
Yeah, I agree with you. And that's the one that I have trouble kind of pinning down, because otherwise I think Denzel's performance is terrific. And I think that, my hunch is you don't need the blind thing. You know what I mean? Like, you don't need to sell it as, to do the big reveal that he's blind. The reveal could be enough that he was carrying around a Bible in his head, and that that was fine. So whatever you think of that point, which I have problems with that too, but that could have been enough. I don't think we needed it. I think it's a poorly executed trick, and because of its execution in performance, it's kind of a boat anchor on the end of the film.
My other issue that I have with the film is I weirdly find it. I don't know if I should say anticlimactic or like it's a little bit of a false finish. It just, we get this huge climax at the house of the cannibals, the cannibal couple, which is a fantastic scene. I absolutely love it. But then and Eli gets shot, and they take Solara. And then Solara escapes and goes back, and they say, it's not worth our gas, we don't have enough, and they head back to their place. That essentially is the climax of the film, and it doesn't feel like that should have been the climax of the film, right? Because then he's not quite dead. He's been shot, but he's not quite dead. Very Monty Python-esque. And so she takes him all the way out to Alcatraz, and the whole ending is revealed and stuff. But it feels like there should have been another climax. Like, it didn't feel like we had hit the climax of the film. And so I feel like that's a script issue where the way that they built that climax just felt early to me. And it just feels like they kind of climax the film at the end of Act 2, and then Act 3 is just this journey to get to Alcatraz that has no real climax, just a twist.
Yeah, no, I'm right with you. It feels like they sort of bumped their head on the end of the film, like they weren't quite ready for it. And this is one of those examples, though, where I think the Alcatraz journey as the ultimate goal of the film is a good one. Like, I find that a rich kind of reveal, that this is where we're gonna start rebuilding civilization in a place that comes from such darkness, right? I mean, it's really horrible. I really get that, but there's something in the pacing between Act 2 and Act 3 that gets lost, and I'm not entirely sure what that is. Now that I've watched the film a couple more times, it just really falls off a cliff right after that wonderful single shot, effect scene, and you're right. I have a real problem with it. I also have a problem with the Mila Kunis pivot. I mean, at the end of the film, as she's wandering off into the desert, I'm not sure that's a story that needs to be left hanging there. For me, her taking up the mantle of the wanderer as the archetype, that's one that as a result of the third act kind of complications that stands out to me as a kind of confusing element.
Jumping forward in our conversation to first shot, last shot, I think that it absolutely doesn't. It kind of gums up the anything that they could have done thematically, tying the first and last shots together. The first shot is really it's a really interesting long tracking shot along the ground. You're going through this dead forest. You see a gun, a dead body, this Mr. Bigglesworth cat kind of going to eat the dead body. And then it's revealed that Eli's in the background with an arrow, and he's hunting Mr. Bigglesworth. And, you kind of already brought up the last shot, but do you want to describe it better?
Well, yeah, no, Solara has officially kind of taken up the mantle. She's got the glasses, she's got the iPod, she's got the Beats earbuds, and she's walking on the highway, fading off into the blazing sun. And it's actually a beautiful shot, but I think you're right. Thematically, it doesn't really tie in.
No, especially because it's like this. I mean, the first shot's really setting up this world and Eli's world and everything going on here. And it really felt like the end of it should have been his story. It should have been, I thought it would have worked well just seeing him laying there and just like fading to white, almost like, he's kind of past this life and has moved on. He's succeeded in his mission, brought the Bible to these people, and now has absolved himself of any sins or whatever, cleansed himself, however you want to say it. It just feels like, that part of the journey is complete. The Solara bit, passing it off to her, it's like, yeah, I agree with you. Like, what's the point of that? How does that tie into anything? I mean, the journey's continuing. Why? What's her mission now? It doesn't, all of a sudden, it's just like, okay, but what? I didn't really think it worked at all, especially because the whole idea is rebuilding society with these books and everything. What is her journey doing about that rebuilding?
And that's it. I mean, you know, whereas, as you said, the first shot is setting up the world for us with regard to Denzel and his story, the last shot is setting up a new world for us. It doesn't look the same. It's hot. It's not cold. And it leads off in presumably a different direction because they made it as far as you can go west. Now she just turns around and is going back. Right? Even symbolically, the change in direction just doesn't hold up. It provides, you know, greater cognitive dissonance than anything else.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, I don't want to let go of one script thing that, you know, we've already kind of spoiled that it was the Bible, and this is the thing that I have a problem with in the script, that they anchored the entire story around the fact that there is this, that they can't find any Bibles, that all the Bibles have been burned, and you know, they did make a point that all the books were burned and that the Bibles were to go and that they needed to, and now they're, you know, the Carnegie's, you know, entire mission is to find a Bible. It is Eli's job. He has this Bible. It's his sworn kind of journey to get the Bible to the West. And I just could not help thinking, in the first sequence where Martz brings in his first bounty of books and throws all these books on the desk in front of Carnegie, and some of the books include things like the Diary of Anne Frank, which has sold millions and millions and millions, tens of millions of copies. In fact, 30 million copies the Diary of Anne Frank has found. Now, 30 years later, after the apocalypse, they're able to find a Diary of Anne Frank and throw it down on the desk. Which, you know, arguably is symbolic in its own right? Anne Frank's kind of testimony, you know, throughout the war is I think symbolic of being on the desk in the first place. The Bible they can't find. The Bible they can't find. It's in every bedside table drawer of every hotel, you know, in the world. We're in the Christian-speaking, you know, world, and they can't find a Bible. You know how many Bibles, Andy? 5 billion Bibles have been printed. 5 billion Bibles. They have Anne Frank on Carnegie's desk, and they can't find 1 in 5 billion Bibles at a Holiday Inn on the side of the road somewhere. I find that so ridiculously hard to believe, and I know I'm nitpicking that, but it's one of those that got stuck in my craw so early as I'm researching publication records of these stupid books while watching this movie, and I got completely locked up in it. I get it, but I got tied up in it.
Well, and it is one of those things. I mean, you have to buy into the conceit of that in the story to make it work. And you're right. It's like, I mean, it's a relatively Christian country, and there's a lot of Christians around the world. You'd think that if everybody started burning books, that there would be, you know, at least a few people who hid their Bibles somewhere. You know, they would be keeping them.
And the only Bible they find is covered in locks, right? Like that's
in Braille.
The only
right?
Bible they have is Braille, and it's leather clad and covered and locked up. I found that hard to believe. And the problem with it is that I allow myself to buy into so many other areas of the film that are otherwise, right, fantastical, right? I can get over, more of those issues, but these little conceits as the foundation of the entire sort of journey of the narrative, that's where I had trouble.
What's interesting about it is Gary Whitta wrote this script in 2007, and it was on the blacklist. We've talked about the blacklist a number of times. It's a list that kind of floats around Hollywood of the hottest scripts of the year that have still not been produced. And it was on the list in 2007. And usually what happens when a script ends up on the on the blacklist is they will get kind of picked up relatively quickly. And that is what happened here. And I think that on the page, this is a really interesting read. I can imagine why Gary Whitta was able to find a distributor for it after getting on there, because the conceit of it is a really fascinating world, right? I mean, it's really interesting what they've developed here, and this world that he's painted. But yes, you're right. There are elements within it that I think, when it comes down to actually making it, might not completely hold up as well as they perhaps did on the page, when you don't have to think about it quite as much.
I wonder, Andy, how many Bibles, I mean, we know 5 billion Bibles are produced. I wonder how many KFC moist toilets have been made. Do you think it's
Right?
crested 5 billion? That was actually a really fun element. I loved seeing him wash himself. Is that weird? Man, I love Denzel washing himself with a moist toilet.
You perv. No, I agree. I think that the again, this world building that they do here is just so brilliant. Bathing yourself with whatever you can find, like a moist towelette from KFC. And then the barter system that ties into that. When we see him show up at the engineer's place to try to get his battery recharged, and this bartering turns into, I've got this, and just like all the things that he's kind of found, it's a fascinating kind of a future look at kind of a post-apocalyptic world when money doesn't matter and people are just trading things that are useful. I thought that was just absolutely awesome.
And they get away with some really fun kind of bits of anachronism, right? I mean, the Beats headphones that he's using, the branded Beats are all sort of destroyed. And those Beats, I mean, Beats just formed in 2008. So the Beats he's using probably were just released, like brand new products. And here we are. He's still using them 30 years later. Same thing with that old touchscreen iPod, which, the touch sensitive, the capacitive button iPod, which was one of the worst in terms of iPods, and it's still kicking away. I thought in terms of, branded, product placement, that worked really, really well. I thought it was super fun to see them, age some of those products. You had a comment about the rape scene, the Save the Cat rape scene, sort of.
Well, it was an interesting script element because you have this moment where Eli comes across a couple who get attacked by some of Carnegie's men, and now granted he's on top of a freeway that has crumbled, and really has no quick way down to them. I mean, he'd have to go all the way back and down, and it would take a long time. But still, he stops up there, and he has this moment where he's like, "Stay the path," like he's not able to interfere with this situation because he has a very specific job that he has to do. So they set it up, and it's just like, it's really interesting that he is this guy who will not go and help these people who are getting attacked and raped and killed. And so in the world of Save the Cat, for our protagonist, it's just kind of strange that, he doesn't do it. And so it's like, it almost makes us like him a little bit less. And I should just comment weirdly that the very first thing we see him do is kill a cat. So
yeah, right. Literally.
So they're pretty obviously saying, hey, he's not going to save the cat in this film.
He's going to then eat the cat and then cultivate the cat's oil and put it on his lips. So that's the guy.
Oh, that's him. But it is. But then the interesting thing is in the way the script is constructed, he then ends up in the bar at this little town, at Carnegie's town, and these guys come in who had raped and pillaged, and he confronts them and ends up kind of taking them down. Now, granted, they kind of attack him first, but he ends up kind of killing them all, and he says that I know what you did and all this sort of stuff, and. It's just one of those odd script construction moments where it's like he doesn't save the cat when he could have, but but he's allowed to do it later when he's at the bar instead of, again, staying on the path, ignoring these people, and just kind of getting out of town as soon as he has the opportunity. But this is kind of the way that the plot needs to work so that he can end up kind of having a moment with Carnegie and end up getting the plot progressing. So it's kind of a frustrating moment because I'm like, okay, if he's going to do it anyway, why wouldn't he do it out there on the highway? And the more I look at it, the more it really just kind of falls down as just obvious plot construction that, I don't know, he doesn't stay the path. So I end up having trouble with it.
okay, devil's advocate, that he is in that bar. We're talking about when Martz approaches him and says, "You poked my cat," right?
Absolutely. More cat abuse.
Yeah, more cat abuse. Poke the cat, save the cat, eat the cat. So my sense is that had Martz not been persistent, that Eli would have not pursued that fight. I watched that sequence a couple of times with that in mind, that it was Martz who was pushing those buttons, and it was Eli who finally could not stay out of that particular fight any longer. And so I bought into it as a sense of here's the Witta and the Hughes brothers trying to set the stage for Eli having a set of rules that is not bound by a particular generalized moral right or wrong, but more about the journey protecting the journey that he's on. And those rules might be a little different. That's why while he's driven, you can tell he's struggling. He wants to go save the people on the road in the rape scene. He can't because he's on that journey. He wants to fight Martz, because he knows what happened, but he's trying not to because he needs to protect the integrity of his journey. What do you think of that case?
I actually think that's a very valid case, and I think it makes perfect sense, and I kind of agree with it. I think that that very much makes it all work better. So thank you for that.
I live to serve. Okay. Let's run through, or do we want to talk about Hughes Brothers anymore specifically?
I just feel like, again, we've talked about their direction and really kind of creating compelling storytelling. I think that they, for a film like this, though, they really know how to handle action and do some interesting and exciting construction of their fight sequences. I thought they really pulled it off nicely every single time.
Oh, the opening fight, the silhouette fight under the overpass. And there's an example. You can tell they're kind of leading us along the Eli's blind thing on second viewing when he backs into the shadow. That right. To me telegraphs that, here it is. We're going to put our hero, we know that the guys, when they chase him, they're not going to be able to see. That's one where, you could make the case that it works. I still don't think it works because, whatever. But the fight itself, that one shot fight, the silhouette, is one of the most fantastic straight up single shot action sequences, I've seen recently. It's just great.
Well, and they really did that a lot with the fight sequences. Is they tried to do it where it wasn't cut. They tried to keep it as with the camera going as long as they could. And when you're in the bar and you've got the camera just kind of like spinning around the action, and which was really fascinating. And then you get this incredible 3-minute shot at the cannibal house, which is going in and out of the house. I mean, obviously it's all shot with many shots and all kind of stitched together, but they do it really well, I thought, as you're kind of flying through the walls and into the house and out back the wall and down to the people out in front and just kind of back and forth. And you're seeing this whole thing taking place. Really exciting stuff. And they handled it just extremely well.
Well, and isn't that a testament to, different ways to shoot action that don't include, let's just hold the camera and get real close. When you have really creative ways of approaching the scene, I think it worked particularly well.
Absolutely.
Casting by Mindy Marin of Casting Artists Inc. And she's got us Denzel, and he pulls his weight.
He does. And what you said about him earlier about just carrying this film so well, I completely agree. He does it. He's just a rock solid actor. I mean, we've talked about him on the show before. He's always exciting to watch. He does a great job as this character, and you can really see his inner struggle that he's carrying with this journey that he's taking. Aside from the bit about being blind, I think he's just rock solid. I mean, he did all of his own stunts in all the hand-to-hand fight sequences, having studied under Bruce Lee's protege Dan Inosanto. Lost a bunch of weight to prepare for this role. I mean, he really just did a great performance here, and I really enjoy him as this character of Eli, a really interesting character in his body of characters that he's played.
Dan Inosanto, I don't remember if we actually mentioned him by name on the show before, but we have talked about him, about one of his films before. Do you remember that film, Andy? Don't Peek.
Oh, I was gonna go peek.
Yeah, I know you were.
Well, I know what it is now.
You cheat. He actually choreographed the knife fight in Red Belt, which was part of our David Mamet series, and I love that film.
I don't even remember a knife fight in that film. Says a lot. Sorry.
Betrayer.
He was the professor also in Red Belt.
Yes.
Played the professor. Yeah.
That's true.
And he was Wing Kong Hatchet Man in Big Trouble in Little China.
Yes, he was. Gary Oldman is Carnegie. And
yes, he is.
He's Gary Oldman. When you corner the market of crazy villain, you just own it. Gary Oldman owns it.
He's almost channeling his character from Leon, the
Yes,
Professional.
he is.
Not quite, but he's pretty close.
Well, from The Professional, from The Fifth Element, I mean, come on.
But really, I mean, Gary Oldman is just fun to watch, and he's a really interesting bad guy. You know, he's got this interesting setup with Jennifer Beals as his kind of. At first, it kind of seems like maybe his wife, but then you realize that no, she's kind of his slave. It's like, wow, things just got dark. I thought he was a little bit nicer than he really is.
He's not nice. He is not a nice person.
Not nice. Not nice.
But super crazy, and actually, interestingly, I think his performance here is paced well, arguably paced better than some of his other ones, where he starts out as the man on a mission angle of his character of Carnegie is I think really apparent, and he's not just nuts. That he has a mission, and I think he performs that well given the context of the film. If you buy into the worldview, I think you're going to buy into Carnegie.
And jumping forward in our cast a little bit, but Redridge, played by Ray Stevenson, is his kind of head thug. And I've got to say, I thought that there was a really interesting relationship between the two of these guys, that Redridge wasn't just the thug for Carnegie. He actually was a kind of a thug that seemed to have opinions about what Carnegie was doing and decisions that he was making, and really kind of seemed to not like what Carnegie was doing sometimes, and sometimes would say that. And it's like, this is actually a much more interesting relationship between the head guy and his main thug than we normally see. And I really appreciated that Ray Stevenson's character was actually given some stuff to do in this film. So that's just a little side note there.
I agree with that, and he has been in a lot of stuff. This Ray Stevenson coming up, he's in Thor Ragnarok as Volstagg, so we'll see him again very soon this year. Although he's got a bunch of other stuff coming up too. And
he's been Volstagg in the other films too. He's
He's
kind of a Thor regular.
He's Marcus in the Divergent series, and he was Blackbeard in Black Sails, the TV series, which I never watched. Did you watch that?
I didn't. No, I missed that one.
We should talk about Jennifer Beals, I think, though she doesn't have. You mentioned already that she, she's kind of the slave. She also plays blind well.
Right. In a film with two blind people, she's the one who actually convincingly acts blind.
Yeah,
I was like, okay, that's how a blind person should be acting. And the scene, watching it a second time when Eli is in the room and Claudia comes to see him, I had a real hard time watching Eli trying to believe he was blind when I so convincingly was believing that Claudia was blind. It was that made it all the more difficult.
Yeah, right. That's probably the worst. That is the worst sequence in the film. But she was otherwise great. She's been with Denzel before. We've never talked about Devil in a Blue Dress, I don't believe.
No, but
is that on the list at some point?
It should be, because Carl Franklin's film is just fantastic.
Yeah, truly. Playing Claudia's daughter is Mila Kunis, and she's, I go back and forth on Mila Kunis. I think she comes from, in terms of her star rose on that 70s show, But I think she's done an admirable job of taking interesting roles, and this is one of those. I think the problems that I have with her in this film don't result from her portrayal of the character. There's script problems that she kind of bears the weight of, but I actually think she did a great job.
Yeah, I think she's fine in the film. I mean, I wasn't overly wowed by her, but I think I enjoyed her more than probably Kristen Stewart would have been in this film. She had initially been offered the role, but turned down due to conflicts with the Twilight saga, The New Moon, which so Kristen didn't end up in this one. And to that end, I appreciate that Mila was in it.
Admirable grace you offer Mila there, Andy. That's terrific. We've mentioned Evan Jones as Martz. He's the face. I mean, he's a thug, and he ends it early. But he's a face that you have seen. You absolutely have seen Evan Jones, and you won't know where you saw him.
Yeah, but boy, is he a face that is recognizable. And, he's great here. He's great in these sorts of roles. And so it's fun to see him. A face that you do recognize quite easily in this film that isn't credited, weirdly, is Malcolm McDowell. He pops up in the very end of the film. And no credit. And I couldn't figure out what would have been the case. I don't know if he didn't want his name on the film, if he just kind of popped in as a favor, or if he didn't like it or what. But yeah, no credit. So kind of strange little thing to not see him pop up, because he's like such a recognizable character.
Yeah, you wonder kind of where he is in his, in his career at this film. When he's hitting this film. Like, I wish I knew where these uncredited things came from. This was not one of those films that seems to be couched in such controversy that he would want to distance himself from it somehow, and I found nothing that would indicate that.
He was uncredited in Hidalgo when he played Major Davenport in the movie In Good Company, where he played the CEO of the company that our protagonists worked for, and then this film. So that's it. I don't really know why in any of those cases. It's not like it's not like they're all the same. I mean, two of them were from 2004. This was one of his many, many credited projects in 2010. So who knows what his reasoning was? Just no idea.
Yeah. Tom Waits as engineer. He's always entertaining. Was he blind too in this film?
He may as well have been. He saw as well as Denzel did.
Their exchange at the beginning, that again is going to be chalked up to Denzel couldn't be blind. That sequence... There's no way he's blind in that sequence.
Right.
They're both looking dutifully down at the contacts on that little battery thing. There's no way.
Yeah, it doesn't. I don't buy it. I don't buy it at all. And then there's our fantastic cannibal couple, Michael Gambon and Frances de la Tour, George and Martha.
They were great. They were great, mostly because it was just a very subtle pivot. I honestly, I didn't see it coming. I know that they had made mention of cannibalism earlier in the film, but I honestly did not see it coming. I thought they were just a good-natured couple at the end of the film.
Yeah, it was interesting. My biggest problem with that in the story is, doesn't Eli say something, or maybe Solara says, "Oh, do you see how much they're shaking?" And I don't recall ever seeing either of those characters shaking, like they had the shakes, whatever, it's reference to that. Anybody who's kind of got the shakes, it's some thing that you get when you start kind of cannibalizing and eating people. And I don't recall seeing George and Martha shaking at all, but one of them, I feel like one of our, like Eli or Solara, I feel like one of them says something when they're all of a sudden like, "Oh, we got to get out of here." And so I didn't quite buy into that whole thing. But it does turn into a fantastic scene, and I love the fact that they're trying to keep them here so they can eat them. And weirdly, it's like, "Oh, come out back and look at all the dead our grave of all the people we've eaten."
I know,
such a strange little thing, yeah,
super strange. And I think you can't ignore. Well, first of all, the first thing I think of is George and Martha, the happy hippo couple in the kids' books. George and Martha?
I don't know that couple.
I know that I should not think of them first, but there's the whole George and Martha and the pea soup, and never mind. But so just funny. Know, spoiler, George doesn't like Martha's pea soup. And it turns out Martha doesn't like pea soup either. She just likes making it. So everything was fine with
I'm
George
glad
and
in the world of hippos, everything turned out okay.
But how diabolical is it symbolically that George and Martha as a reference to the father and mother of the great United States are actually eating its children.
Yes, right. I know.
That's
And
grim.
then they also had referenced that they had been kind of deliberately pointing out the couple from Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf as well, which I thought was kind of an interesting reference. And which is funny because I don't think watching that film, I don't think I ever tied that George and Martha to the Washingtons.
Nope.
It's like, oh, that is the same names. How funny.
God. All right, let's talk about getting it made. Yes.
Yeah, like I mentioned about being on the blacklist, once it was there, that year, of course, Columbia and Warner Brothers bought the rights to it and hired the Hughes Brothers to direct it. Then I guess they had Anthony Peckham do some rewrites on it, although he ended up getting no screen credit for it. And then Denzel came on shortly after that, and he suggested Gary Oldman, who came on a little bit after that. And the next thing you know, they're making a movie. And Don Burgess was our cinematographer on this film. I think a lot of the kudos to the look obviously go to what he did here and just kind of what the Hughes brothers wanted to do as far as kind of creating this world. But Don Burgess, who we've talked about on the show before, boy, is there a fantastic just this dead world look to the whole film.
Let's just say this film looks well. Let me put it this way: 42 would have looked a lot different had it carried this. That would have been a film. Right there. I want 42, but I want it to look like Book of Eli. How about that?
Oh, that would be an interesting
Forrest
pitch.
Gump. I want Forrest Gump to look like this. Run, Forrest, run. It takes on a whole new thing.
Oh, God,
dear,
so
Don Burgess. Well done, Don Burgess. He's also behind Spider-Man and Castaway. Very high contrast. Darks are very dark. Great looking film. Comments on production design: Gabe Buckley, Christopher Burry and more. Art direction: Patrick Cassidy. Set decoration.
I don't have anything to say specifically other than fantastic design here. I mean, it really does create this world. Same with hair, makeup, costumes. The whole team really came together to create a fully believable post-apocalyptic world. I think they did a great job. Filming in New Mexico, all over the place. Clearly, it was a sign of the tax incentive that they were able to take advantage of filming out there. But I mean, the whole team here does an amazing job of creating this place.
Yeah, totally. We should also talk about the fight scenes. Jeff Amata, stunt coordinator, did a lot of the fight scene choreography, and man, does that guy got credits.
Right?
186 credits, including one of my very favorite, Fight Club. That's a guy who owns fights. So really, I mean, absolutely see them on display in this movie.
He's really a solid person in the world of stunts, just doing some amazing stuff. And, getting out there in film too. I mean, he does quite a bit. I mean, his 55 screen credits, obviously they're going to be in relation to the fight sequences, but, he just does a great job. And the stuff that he put together for this film, we already mentioned how great it was, but bringing into it some Filipino Kali, the martial arts stuff. I mean, it's just, it looked so good, everything.
Yeah. Looked really, really good. Editing by Cindy Moyo. I'm going to say Moyo. You think it's Moyo or Malo?
I don't know. I kind of would go either way on this one. Not quite sure.
Well, she did a fine job. Cindy did. I thought it was cut well. I didn't find any pacing issues that felt like the result of cutting, and it held together well and visually I think made great use of the stock they were creating out of Burgess's camera.
I think when it comes to the editing, the thing that stands out for me is the sound editing and the sound mixing. Chris Jenkins and Frank A. Montano were the re-recording mixers, and Eric Norris and Stephen Williams were the sound designers and the supervising sound editors. I just constantly was amazed by the sound in this film, particularly the fight sequences when the camera was moving and spinning around the action. And I mean, just sitting in my living room, it was like all of the sounds kept spinning around with it. Like they pinpointed it so perfectly that the surround mix it was a stunning example of how to do a great surround mix. This would probably be a great demo disc to have to show off a system if you had a really great system. So kudos to those guys for the work they did here.
Totally agree. I feel like speaking of sound, I don't feel like we can talk about sound without talking about the soundtrack, the score. Actually, Atticus Ross, Leopold Ross, and Claudia Sarn. I don't remember when I fell in love with Atticus Ross's stuff, but man, I adore this film's music. The opening sequence again. Not to pile on, but the way they use the music in that opening sequence in conjunction with the sound and the visuals, I think it's a perfect package. Just as the sound or as the music stops, the arrow is released, the cat is dead. It's just perfect. It's a perfect energetic high for me.
It's great stuff. This was actually the year that I kind of discovered Atticus Ross as a composer. I mean, obviously he had been, in music long before this, but this was the year of The Social Network, which is the first film that I kind of recognized him as a composer. I mean, I saw Book of Eli that same year, but I guess I didn't pinpoint him as the composer, but Social Network is really where it all clicked for me. And that's where I really started noticing what he was doing, which is just always really interesting. Lots of just interesting stuff. But interestingly, he started working with Allen Hughes a couple years before in 2008 when Allen did a segment of the film New York, I Love You, where they, is a bunch of different segments in that particular film. And then he's gone on, he did Broken City, another Allen Hughes film that Allen did solo without Albert a few years later. So they've kind of stuck with it. But I completely agree with the music. Just great stuff here.
And you put on Social Network, Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, Gone Girl, this, Patriots Day. Just put all of those in a playlist and shuffle it, and you got some of the best like head down, headphones on work music that you've ever built. It's just great. I get more done when I'm listening to these soundtracks than any other music.
Yeah, great stuff.
So how to do an award season?
Well, this wasn't a big Oscar sort of film. It was nominated for several Saturn awards, which are the sci-fi fantasy awards. It was nominated for Best Science Fiction Film and Best Actor. Unfortunately, both of those lost to Avatar. And then it was nominated for Best Makeup, which lost to Star Trek. So that was nice. That at least got some recognition, even if it did lose to the big boys. And then the Black Reel Awards. It did win Best Director. For Albert and Allen Hughes. And then it was nominated for Best Actor, Best Score, and Best Film. All of them lost to a film called Night Catches Us, which I had never heard of, and I had to look up what is this film. It actually sounds like quite an interesting film. And Anthony Mackie is in it. He won for Best Actor, and The Roots did the score, and they won for that. So, but it looks like an interesting little film, so I'll have to check it out. But at least the Hughes Brothers did win Best Director for that.
And what does that mean for the box office?
Well, this big budget action film from the Hughes Brothers, it ended up costing $80 million. So they had a nice chunk of change to play with for this. That was about $88 million in today's money. It wasn't a Michael Bay-sized budget, but still for them and for this dystopian action thriller, it was a great budget to have. The movie did open in the doldrums of January 15th, 2010, opposite The Spy Next Door. But that's not all. It opened a week after Avatar kind of had its big debut, or a few weeks after Avatar had its big debut. So really, there was no chance in hell that it was going to make it to the number one slot. That thing was just a behemoth at the box office. It did open at least to a strong number 2, though, so that's good. Movie did end up making $94.8 million at the domestic box office, which is about $104.3 million in today's dollars. And overseas, the movie made $64.5 million, or about almost $80 million in today's dollars, making it a grand total of $175.3 million adjusted. Gives the movie an adjusted profit per finished minute of about $740,000, which is great for a film, given the gift of January opening by its distributor.
I love that you actually place that the film opens a week after Avatar as second in most interesting opens to it opened opposite Jackie Chan's The Spy Next Door.
Well, let's just say Spy Next Door could have ended up at number 2.
Yeah.
Luckily, it didn't.
That's right. Dodged a bullet. Oh, Andy, I think it's time for us to rank it.
Let's do it.
Head over to flickchart.com/the next reel, or better yet, just swipe over to the show notes on your podcast player of choice, and you will see a link for Flickchart. Just tap on that link. Tap on the link right there, and it'll take you right over to this movie on flickchart.com, and you can add it to your own list. And let's see how it does.
All right, first up, we have The Book of Eli, or Mad Max.
Well, that's an
I'm gonna say
interesting
Mad
opener.
Max.
Yeah, I'm going to say
very
Mad Max
dystopian
too.
films. All right, Mad Max takes it. The Book of Eli, or The Adventures of Baron Munchausen.
I'm going to say Book of Eli.
Another problematic film.
Yeah.
I kind of want to say Baron Munchausen, but I feel like Book of Eli is actually a little bit more of an enjoyable watch. So I'm going to pick that one. The Book of Eli, or What's Up, Doc?
I'm going to say Book of Eli on this one.
I'm going to say What's Up, Doc?
How hard? Are you going to say it real hard?
I think I am.
Really?
I am, yeah. I the issues I have with the blindness for
that was too much, right? You can't let
it was
that go.
too much. Yeah, no.
I feel like if I watch the movie and I put it in my head, he's not blind. He just happens to be able to read Braille. Then it's a better film.
Well, yes.
There's no grand reveal at all. All right, let's do it. Let's go to the races here.
Let's do it.
All right.
1, 2, 3. Paper.
Rock. All right.
Look at that. All right, The Book of Eli, or Run, Lola, Run.
Run, Lola, run.
Yeah, Run, Lola, Run.
Hands down.
The Book of Eli, or Splash. You know I'm going to Splash.
Splash, please, yes.
Oh, The Book of Eli, or Gattaca. Really interesting sci-fi film.
Oh, I'm Gattaca on this one.
Yeah, I'm going to say Gattaca. The Book of Eli, or The Godfather, Part 3.
Would be Part 3. I think I'm probably Book of Eli.
I'm probably The Godfather Part 3.
Sounds like
We're
neither
both
of us
probably.
are real hard.
Oh yeah, we're both a little wishy-washy.
I could wishy-wash over to The Godfather just on the strength of the trilogy.
Yeah.
So
It's got a great ending.
yeah, it sure
really
does.
does.
All right.
All right. The Book of Eli, or The Sandlot. I'm going to say The Sandlot.
Yeah, I'll give you Sandlot.
The Book of Eli, or The Host.
Well, I think you know my love for The Host. I sometimes give it up too easily on The Host. I think I'm going to go for The Host this time around.
And I was going to go for The Book of Eli.
All right. We're doing it.
All right, here we go. 1, 2, 3. Scissors.
Paper. Ah, come on, man.
I figured it out on that one.
Oh, God.
All right, well, that puts The Book of Eli at number 221 on our chart, which is a pretty good spot. 221 out of 295.
Yeah, it's a little low for me. A little bit low, mostly because of my clearly unjustified losses. So,
and for that, I am sorry.
It is what it is. But if anything, I mean, I love this series, and I think we both really rallied behind Menace to Society. We were a little bit split on From Hell, but this film, I think there is so much going for this film, and a real testament to the brothers Hughes as visual filmmakers. I hope they figure something out to come together and tell some more stories, because this speaks volumes. This was a really fun film to watch in spite of its challenges.
No, and I agree. I mean, it really is a very enjoyable film. It's very easy to watch. It is very interesting despite its issues, and it certainly is something that I would be happy to watch again. And going back to the Hughes brothers, they are, I want to know kind of what's going on with them as filmmakers, because after this, they really haven't worked together. I know Allen, like I said, had directed Broken City back in 2003, and Albert, I believe, is living over in Prague and kind of doing his huge epic caveman movie that is supposed to be coming out. I think it's supposed to be coming out this year, The Salutrian. So I'm very curious to know, what these guys are going to, how they're going to continue moving forward, and are they going to down the road find a way to kind of bring it back together, or are they going to kind of keep things separate now? I didn't see Broken City. I didn't hear much other than it's kind of a menace to society, but in the world of white police cops. So. Or cops and politicians, I think. So, so I'm curious about that one, and I'm definitely curious about the Solutrean. But no matter what, I think they're really compelling filmmakers and always worth considering when they have a new film out there.
What does this do for your Letterboxd ranking?
I ended up at a 3-star for this one.
Yeah, I think
I feel like it. Yeah, I feel like it could have gone higher if it weren't for some of those issues that I had. But.
Yeah, I came in at a solid 3.5, and I was feeling pretty good about that. And as usual, you're contagious, so I'll give you 3. We can't do quarter stars, right? So I'll stick with 3 and be happy with that. But happy with that genuinely. Like I enjoyed this film, and I'm like you. I'll watch it again for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Now we are moving in a very different direction with our next series, Andy. We're taking on a different director. Where do we go from here?
Yeah, very different director is right. We are going to be really switching directors and jumping on with the much more naturalistic style directings of Kelly Reichardt. She's a writer and director, and also somebody who wears multiple hats. And we're going to be talking about a few of her films, starting with, not at the beginning of her career, but we're going to be starting with Wendy and Lucy from 2008. And then we'll be doing Meek's Cut Off and her most recent film from last year, Certain Women. Outstanding.
I look forward to this conversation, if anything, because I love these hairpin turns that we take thematically.
Right.
Oh, man. Is this one not anything at all like Eli?
Yeah.
I guess it's a road movie. It's kind of a road movie.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Okay, anyway, all right. Until then, Andy, I think I got to go to bed.
All right, man. Well, I hear someone knocking at the door. I'm going to go invite them in for supper.
Amazon giveth, Andy.
As Amazon always doeth.
I got a 1-star, Andy. And it's from Lynn, who saw this movie in September of 2015 and calls it a pathetic, violent movie. The Book of Eli is, of course, the Bible, says Lynn. The only saving grace in the movie is Denzel Washington's acting. He is superb. This is post-apocalypse when the atmosphere opened and everything on the surface burned, sort of. Eli is heading west for reasons unknown, except his claim of a message from God or an obsessive-compulsive disorder. The movie is mostly an excuse for gratuitous violence, a string of such scenes. He is carrying the book west. At one point, he encounters a somewhat educated thug who rules a small town and is looking for a copy of the Bible. He steals Eli's. Eli heads west. Turns out it's a Braille Bible, so our thug cannot read it. He remembers the Bible was a book of power and figures that if he could get one, he could have that power. Poor sap. Well, Eli and female companion finally reach the west coast and find a fortified and armed city on an island where they are attempting to restore civilization. He has the Bible memorized and dictates it. He then dies, and female companion picks up his gear and heads east for reasons not quite clear. I was going to donate this movie to a book fair next month, but I have decided that it's too inane and violent, so I will destroy it. I do not understand why Denzel Washington made it. Sad.
I will destroy it.
So you kind of have to get to the end of that one to get the punchline. She sort of buries the lead. I was going to donate it to a book fair, but instead I will destroy it.
Wow.
I know, right? Oh, man.
Boy, I wonder if she was finding the lost E.T. Atari game mine. This is where you belong.
And so I will destroy it there. What's yours?
Wow. Well, I'm switching it up. I picked a different one, but it's a 1-star by Michael A. Jones, who says, not so good. Reminded me of Waterworld on land. Was not very entertained. This movie seemed like a cross between Waterworld and a bad Western. Would say Tombstone, but cannot compare a classic to this one. The dialogue and storyline were left a lot to be desired. Found myself bored many times while watching, and the story had many holes. Not worth renting.
Okay, I take offense to the Waterworld comparison. I think that's unfair. That is too far, man.
That's a
too
bridge too
far.
Oh, man, so funny.
Jeez. All right. Thanks, Amazon.
Hold that thought just a sec. I have a child in here again. I don't know, buddy. I think that if you can stop watching this because it's messing up my show, and Mommy should have told you. Okay, just go check on your Wii. Maybe play the Wii now.
No, I can't. It's still downloading, whatever it's called.
Okay, well, can you go read some books for a minute? Go talk to Mommy, okay? Have Mommy help you. I'm recording my show right now, bud, okay?
I can't watch any of my favorite
I'm sorry, buddy. Go talk to Mama. Careful. Oh, grumpy boy. Hey, hold on real quick, Pete. What, buddy? You gotta stop coming here. Why don't you go talk to Mama?
This is the last time.
Okay, what?
The Wii said it was done and now it's restarting it.
It's fine.
I told her I'm never gonna get to play.
Oh, you're gonna get to play, okay? It'll just take a minute. I will come out. What I'd like you to do right now is go brush your teeth and get dressed and comb your hair.
I'm eating.
After you're done eating.
It is hard to believe that we have been having in-depth weekly conversations about movies since 2011.
Oh, I know. You're telling me. Producing this show week after week requires a ton of work behind the scenes. If you'd like to help support our efforts, one easy way is by using our originals page when shopping for books and movies that we've covered.
Just visit thenextreel.com/originals. Your purchases made through our links give us a small commission at no extra cost to you and allow us to keep having these great conversations.
In Season 6, our Disease Films series had adaptations like The Omega Man, based on I Am Legend, The Andromeda Strain, Children of Men, and Blindness.
I Am Legend is so much better than The Omega Man.
What about the Will Smith version?
Don't get me started.
For our This Is Real Life Jack series, we talked Black Hawk Down and Seabiscuit, some great true stories based on fantastic books.
And we had more listeners' choices like The Fly, The Emigrants, and Scott Pilgrim versus the World.
You just did a series on The Fly on the Sitting in the Dark podcast. Did you read the original material?
Wasn't watching every Fly movie enough?
Our Big Betty Davis series featured adaptations like The Little Foxes, Now Voyager, All About Eve, and Whatever Happened to Baby Jane.
Are you calling Betty Davis big?
Only in personality and force.
She is a force to be reckoned with.
We talked about the entire The Godfather trilogy, of course. Iconic page to screen, even if it is just the one Mario Puzo book. I wonder if Coppola will ever make The Sicilian.
We also had some Zhang Yimou adaptations with Judo and Raise the Red Lantern. Absolutely gorgeous movies.
And don't forget the Hughes Brothers series with From Hell, based on the graphic novel. Brilliant material.
Kelly Reichardt gave us Wendy and Lucy and Certain Women, adapted from short stories.
Plus more Hayao Miyazaki as we tackled Howl's Moving Castle.
Find all these books and more at thenextreel.com/originals. Every purchase supports the show.
Get the full list of adapted films that we've covered at thenextreel.com/originals and start your next read today.